If it's happening in Burbank, you ought to know, so tune in to the Mike and Roy Show.
And now,
Mike and Roy.
hello, Burbankers, and welcome back to the Mike and Roy Show.
Hey, Mike, it's good to see you, man.
Nice to see you, Roy. We can't be in the same room because we are practicing social distancing, being responsible.
Yes.
It's nice to see you.
Mike, we are doing even more than the average person, keeping, the average person 6 feet away. You and I are over 6 miles away.
That's right. Yes,
So
we are.
Here at the Mike and Roy Show, we always believe in, overdoing things.
Yes.
So
Better
keeping it
safe
at,
than sorry, eh, Roy?
what's that?
Better safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Mike, let's get it. We haven't had a show in a while. We missed St. Patrick's Day. First off, I think you have a wonderful Irish kind of vibe going with your lid there. Is there a name for that real quick, like a traditional Irish name for that kind of hat?
I think so. I mean, a peak or a peaky.
Okay, I know you studied Gaelic for a while.
cap.
Cool. And I wore a green shirt in honor of St. Patrick's Day.
Looks good.
Myself. Mike, actually today it's kind of ironic that you and I are doing a show because we haven't done one in a while. In Burbank, we lost our last little local newspaper, the Burbank Leader, I'm sorry to say. It had fallen on some pretty hard times. It was down to about 5,000 copies going out in print on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And we got it. We got it along with our LA Times. I'm really going to miss it. You and I have gone. Oh, well, first off, I think it's not a good thing to lose a newspaper that really focused on local issues. I know some people are like, whatever, but you and I know we've been to a lot of city council meetings, airport meetings, things like that. And they generally would have a reporter there. The paper we found on, say, Burbank neighborhoods a lot would usually wave the flag for, if you will, say that the status quo, and would rarely go against the tide, but they would ask questions of members of the community, not so much you and I, but more intelligent folks that, I'm kidding, but would maybe say a contrarian opinion. So that would occasionally get out. I think it's sad that we're not going to have credentialed, somebody with media credentials at city council meetings every week, airport meetings. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not real happy. I'm sorry.
I have, ever since, Roy, you and I became really involved in the community years ago with the cell tower issue that we became active in. I noticed that over the past few years, like you said, the Burbank Leader has been more of a cheerleader for the city and city staff and their point of view than it has been for the community. So although I've had some issues with that, I also agree with you. I think it's great that there is some sort of coverage of what's going on at city council meetings. And I told you this earlier, that I think that any city council member or city staff member who is opposed to really good oversight or transparency is very dangerous to our community. And I think especially city council member who we vote on, elected officials, should encourage oversight and should encourage transparency. I think we just lost with the Burbank Leader. We just lost another level of transparency in our local government and oversight. That concerns me.
Well, in yesterday's LA Times, which of course was the parent company of the Burbank Leader, and this was their decision to let the paper go, there was an article about a city council person, and again, this is not Burbank, but in Los Angeles, who the accusation is got an envelope in a bathroom from a developer for a certain project to get a little favored status of $500,000. Now, again, we're not casting any aspersions on what's going on in Burbank, but again, it was in the paper. There was a reporter who, reported that and again, that it doesn't mean that if something goes wrong, Burbank is not going to make the LA Times. But now like you said, we're losing that local boots on the ground reporter that might
Yeah.
get to things quicker and stop things,
Like, right, like Roy, who's going to report it now when one of our city council members gets a brown bag of $500,000 in it from a developer? Who's going to report it? I guess it's up to you and me.
Well, and to put things in perspective, Mike, about 25 years ago, there were 3 newspapers, that would be at every city council meetings, all running for story, always.
That's right, yeah.
So, and I know we're in a new era now. Everybody's looking at their phones for their news and everything else, but I don't feel there's a reliable source online. It's mostly social media. There are some other outlets like My Burbank, but I don't see the city council, the airport. There's a lot going on with the airport. Some people don't want to hear about it, but there's a lot going on with that we're going to lose that coverage. Who's going to be there like you?
Yeah.
So
it's up to you and me, Roy.
We'll do what we can here at the Mike and Roy Show. So I know you have other things you want to talk about. I'm going to shut up and give you the floor. Go.
A couple of little small things. We're all dealing with all these new issues with the coronavirus and quarantining and social distancing. Early on in the self-quarantine period, Roy was riding his bike on Magnolia in front of one of the gun stores. And there's a big, long line of people waiting to get into the gun store. And I'd like to hear from our city council members why they consider the gun store an essential service. I wouldn't consider guns an essential service, especially in Burbank. That was a little troublesome. What did you think about that, Roy?
I'm really glad they didn't use me as target practice while I was pedaling past on my bike.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was moving at a good clip. But seriously, I do feel my concern is that I watched a lot of social media comments from people. Let's even say it was 50-50. Some people didn't care, thought it was a great thing that people are exercising their Second Amendment rights and getting their guns and their ammo. But let's say that I'll balance it out and say half of Burbank didn't like what they were seeing. I'd really like to know where our city council fell on this. Was there some voices there that reflected the will of at least half, let's say half of Burbank, that were really disturbed? And meanwhile, LA County was recommending that gun stores be closed.
Yeah.
Again, we're an incorporated city. We're not, we don't have to follow that edict, but that would have come down to the council. So I think people that disagree with the gun shops being open need to do their homework. And next time, and again, I'm not going to take a position on it. I support the right of somebody to have a gun. I don't have one myself, but I'm not going to take that right away from somebody. But if there's people out there in Burbank that don't agree with the council green lighting those stores being open, they need to get active, find out who the council people were that did not help that situation, and think about that when the next city council vote comes along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This all ties in. If you want to change things, it's got to go to that level.
Yeah. A couple other things, Roy.
Yeah.
When we're talking about our new life here, you and I are both quarantined in our own homes, and I was laid off on March 20th temporarily, so I'm not really concerned about my well-being and getting through this financially. But a lot of Burbank residents, you and I both do a lot of gig work as musicians, performers, and a lot of Burbank residents might not realize that coming up here, I believe it's on April 28th, the state Employment Development Department is starting to accept applications from gig workers, independent contractors, musicians, actors, who make their money that their income might not be reported on a W-2. And they'll be eligible for benefits from the state. And as long as they're able to qualify for even the smallest amount from the state, then they would also qualify for an extra $600 a week from the federal government. And I'm in a fortunate position where even though I'm not making enough in benefits to make up for my total paycheck, I'll get by. I'm fine. But there are a lot of people who depend on their gig work and depend on jobs as a musician, an actor, who knows, a plumber, electrician, who are independent contractors, and they will qualify for these benefits. So I want to encourage all Burbank residents to look into that and don't pass up that opportunity to get those benefits so that you can get through this period of time with the least amount of negative impact on your family.
Yeah, that's really great. You got that out there, Mike, because you and I know there's a lot of folks in Burbank that are gig workers.
Yeah.
A lot of, like you said, a lot of people in the arts and so on, independent contractors of all stripes. So thanks for some good points there. I want to go back to one thing, Mike, because again, you and I haven't done a show in a while, and this is our first Zoom show. I want to say thanks to you for setting this up. We've never done a remote show. So maybe out of the pandemic comes interesting things like this, right? We're talking about
which is great for me, because this is a lot nicer for me that I don't actually have to sit in the same room as you.
Boy, I've been hearing that a lot lately, including my wife. No, I'm kidding. She's been very patient with me. Okay, but one thing that you and I have not talked too much about, because we haven't seen each other in a while, is how things fell out, the fallout, if you will, now that we know officially the parcel tax did not pass for the school district here in Burbank. And I want to just remind people, again, if you were a supporter of that parcel tax and wanted to see it happen, do your homework, right? Mike, you were very active with it, and I was officially kind of didn't weigh in too much. I kind of wanted to see how it would all fall out. I have kind of really mixed feelings about it both ways. Okay, but for the folks who really supported it, they need to know that Pasadena set a precedent, and some other cities too. But Pasadena was sort of a model that Burbank could have done, where the district and the city worked together with their sales tax, as I understand it. I'm trying to do some more research on this. It's been a little tough with reaching the right people with everything going on. But as I understand it, in Pasadena, the city council agreed to work with the district city hall, and their sales tax, which we passed a big increase last year, right?
It became the biggest in the country, the highest sales tax in the country.
At least tied for the highest in the country. And Pasadena and the school district, the city and the school shared. Now it went through, the voters approved it. As I understand it, and I hope I'll get corrected if I'm wrong, but the district in Burbank school district went to our city council, and for whatever reason, they could not agree to work together. As I understand it, the city hall wasn't willing to do what it needed to do. That's what I was told by folks at the district. So
too bad the Burbank Leader isn't around. They could look into that a little more.
Good point. I want people to remember this when they go to vote for their next city council people. And again, maybe you agree with the city council, that's fine. But you and I have talked about this. I want to dangle this carrot for all our viewers, that we're going to do a report card show on our city council. And again, we're not getting personal or dragging people through the mud with this, because again, we might agree with things they do, we might disagree, but people should know how they voted on these really important issues, because that did put the district in the position now they have to do their own tax, a parcel tax. And I think a lot of voters were getting tax increase fatigue. We've had a number of things that passed in Burbank that have jacked up our sales tax, other things that have got more expensive. And I think when this parcel tax came around, maybe some folks are like, okay, no more. I just can't do it. Again, I can't speak for every voter, but there was things that went on at city council level that led to that, rightly or wrongly, depending how you feel, that's fine. But people need to connect the dots before they vote next time. So.
And you know, it's hard. People are busy, and it's hard to take the time to look into those things before you pick candidates to vote for. And it seems like it's easier just to say, oh, well, so-and-so's got signs all over Burbank, so they must be good. Don't forget the fact that somebody has a lot of lawn signs doesn't mean they're great. It means that they have some money behind them. And in recent elections in Burbank, a lot of candidates have gotten money from outside of Burbank to influence them. And,
Yes.
you know, things are changing in Burbank.
Well, and don't forget, a very well-financed campaign, usually, I don't want to use the word owes, but if you know, a large group of folks that are part of an organization give a large chunk of money to a candidate, that candidate, as they go on the city council, you know, are they beholden to that group? No, but that group helped get them there.
You know what
So-
I call that, Roy?
What?
Quid pro quo. It's a quid pro quo.
Now, Mike, we got to keep it local, man. We got to keep it local. I know you want to go national on me. No, you're right, though. We got to keep an eye on Washington. And I've seen this on some of our Facebook pages around town, where people will go off on the whole national scene, and that's healthy. What I don't see, or not enough of, is what's going on locally. And now, especially now that we've lost the Burbank Leader, having that reporter there, it's again another reason for people to keep their radar on for local issues. And the Mike and Roy Show, we invite people, if this is the first time you're watching, all of our shows that we've done for the last four or 5 years are on YouTube. You got to punch in the Mike and Roy Show. You'll find lots of interesting stuff. We try to keep it respectful. We always try to do our homework, right? And,
and Roy, of course, I joke about the quid pro quo. But there is a similarity between the things that are happening on the national level and what happens right in our own neighborhoods, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's not a bad thing to keep an eye on it. It's not a bad thing to have some oversight and transparency. It's always a good thing. Transparency, I believe, is always a good thing.
And dissent, Mike, you and I have been to a lot of city council meetings.
Say it, Roy, say it.
Dissent is the purest form of democracy. And that's not an original, Mike. I know you think I made that up.
Oh, I know who made it up.
Was it Thomas Jefferson, I want to say?
I believe it was Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. So I don't want to cop any of Jefferson's script there. But anyway, but yeah, it's a great, it really does apply. We, and I'll shut up about that. But a lot of the meetings we've been to, and I know you want to talk about the airport meetings real quick, and I'm handing it off to you. But at City Council, what we would like to see is our council folks reflecting sometimes, all the time, the majority of the citizens they represent. You and I have been to a lot of meetings where the majority of the public are ignored and they vote another way.
Yeah.
Okay, I know you wanted to talk. I want to hand this off to you. Speaking of meetings, what do you want to say about airport stuff?
We have a noise task force now because enough people in neighboring communities made enough noise to, if you will, to force the hand of community leaders. They got the support of their city council members, and now there's a noise task force committee for the Burbank Airport. Noise that we've been dealing with for a long time. And then recently in 2017, we noticed the noise patterns changing a little bit. Noise in areas that there wasn't noise before. We have a lot more noise in certain areas. And anyway, there's some concern. Our city council members continue to claim that there's really no change at the airport. And ironically, two of the members of the Noise Task Force Committee are members of our city council. And they've kind of gotten a little breathing room now that we're all quarantined in our own homes. But those issues are not going away. The noise at the Burbank Airport is an issue. The noise patterns are changing. There is more noise in areas where there was not as much before, and we should address that. Other communities surrounding Burbank, like North Hollywood, Studio City, Sherman Oaks, Van Nuys, they're experiencing more noise from our Burbank Airport, and they have a right to be concerned about it, and they have a right to have their concerns addressed. Good for them that their city council members are supporting them in this. I wish ours did.
That's a great point, Mike. And just so folks know, not a lot of people know about the Noise Task Force meeting. There's LA City Council folks on there. There's people from the state. And to tie into other airports in Southern California, like John Wayne in Orange County and Long Beach, those airports have been able to protect residents living near the airport a lot more than what's been going on in Burbank. Yes, the airport was here before we bought our homes. We love the airport. I use it. I'm not anti-aviation. What's happening is the planes are taking off a lot lower than they were prior to 2017 because of something called Next Gen. That has changed everything. Much, much louder, and the airport's own data from their noise monitors prove it.
Yet they continue to deny it, and our city council members continue to deny it. But we have the data.
Absolutely, and one of the big appointments for me was a wonderful group here in Burbank called Burbank for Quiet Skies presented all this data, and our friend Audrey, who's worked tirelessly compiling all that data, months and months of it, presented it at one of these task force meetings, did a whole PowerPoint presentation. It was really spot on. She did an amazing job.
Very impressive.
It was really impressive. We're lucky to have her here. And the consultants that the airport hired dismantled, basically, as far as I could, in my opinion, they dismantled what she said and said, no, nothing's changed, and it's not as loud as you're saying, even though she was using the airport's own data.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest disappointment was I felt the council folks from Burbank that was their cue. Okay, now you need to let's not be that harsh. You need to ask the consultants, okay, but what about all the data from the airport that the residents here that I represent presented to you? And it's all backed up with research and everything. How can you just totally say no to that? And we got it, and I was at the meeting. Unless I missed it, I didn't hear a peep from our elected officials here in Burbank. I heard more questions coming from, again, representatives outside of Burbank. Again, we don't want to sound like airport haters or the old guy on a porch with a shotgun. Get off my lawn.
You and I love the Burbank Airport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for people that don't want to think about this too much, but they should, the big plan there is to tear down our great little airport, I consider it a great little airport, and put up a
terminal.
Yeah, absolutely. So a replacement terminal. So when you put that together with Next Gen, that new terminal will have the capacity to pump out a lot more planes.
Yeah. But don't want to talk about it. Here we go back to transparency and oversight. When there's an agency or a group that is threatened by transparency or oversight, I think that says a lot. And I think that is a little dangerous.
Absolutely. Don't forget about the Avion project being built on Hollywood Way, just north of the current terminal. That's going to be bringing 6,000 car trips to Burbank a day. So we're talking about a lot of growth up there. That doesn't necessarily mean bad things at all. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying big changes coming for that area. And it blossoms out from, it's not just Hollywood Way. And, it's going to blossom out across a good chunk of Burbank. It all ties together. So it's things to think about for the future, for people to keep an eye on. So,
Yep. Roy,
do you have anything else you want to go on about?
No. Do you have anything else you want to go on and on about?
No, I think I've done quite enough damage.
Me too. Thank you, Roy. And thanks again for keeping up on all that stuff. And I would just like to say that I'm really proud of our community for doing what we need to do to get through this crisis, coronavirus. I think we're doing a great job self-quarantining and social distancing. Our local stores and even the smaller mom and pop shops around Burbank, I think are doing a great job, doing whatever they can to stay open. So I encourage everybody in the community to keep supporting those local businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. If we can keep the dollars in Burbank, that's an awesome thing to do. Absolutely, and if folks out there, if you have not joined Save Burbank Neighborhoods on Facebook, please do. You got to send a friend request. It's a good way of keeping an eye on local issues.
Yeah.
Nothing against other social media sites in Burbank. Some of them don't do as much. I don't think as much as they should. You know, I would encourage you to join Save Burbank Neighborhoods. It's
Yeah.
a great kind of thing that we real proud of.
Yep. Stay involved, stay on top of these issues, and know what's going on in the community. And we will see you next time on the Mike and Roy Show.
Mike and Roy.